Hello, Orly family. My name is Chase Harrison, and I have got our fearless leader, Ernie, here tonight. And you are all blessed enough for tonight's podcast, or let's see, this week's podcast, actually, to have the two of us uh, entertain you for the next little bit. But we've got a lot of good stuff in store here. We're going, it's all August. It's all back to school. We are cranking right into it. Actually, I'm not yet, so I'll start. Our kids will start school next week, so we are up in Chattanooga, kind of getting in one little last family vacation, and so we're trying to. So if you hear some noise in the background, that's just life at its best right now. So, but other than that, Ernie, welcome.
Yes, thank you, man. Yeah, we're actually, like you said, we're a little bit ahead of the curve with you guys. We've got one, our Nora, who is 6, of course, Haddon too. He's kind of just living this best life now. But Nora at 6, she is now into week 2 of her first grade. So she is thrilled. She's doing well.
Oh
She's
man,
been an incredible example of when people are ready. They do. The first couple of years has been a struggle, but she's been a great example of when people are ready, she's just taken off and doing really well. And so that's been exciting to watch and see her really take off and do well. So she's in week 2 of first grade. And
man.
then we've got Cameron, who is today was day 1 of 5th grade.
Oh
And
wow.
so I
Yeah, I
think they're
saw the
all,
pictures
yeah,
posted
Myra.
up.
That's how you know the school started, right? Because it was on
That's
Facebook.
right.
Yeah, exactly. And so then my oldest son, they're kind of jealous of him. He's 13, but he's now last year we transitioned him to online school, which has been a great move for us. Honestly, that was 7th grade. He starts 8th grade, but he doesn't start till like beginning of September. So I
Oh
think
wow.
there's some sibling jealousy going on there. So it's such a late start, but it's very demanding. But yeah, so we're in full swing.
It really is crazy. Like we had our public schools where we are started last week. Privates will probably start. Oh, I think maybe they'll have their orientation towards the end of this week, and then yeah, you've got some that aren't starting until the beginning of September. So it's a wide variety. But I will to your post on your Nora. So I've also have a Nora, which you know that, but the podcast world doesn't know that. I also have a Nora, and she is one grade ahead of your Nora. So she'll start second grade
Hmm.
this year. And last year, she was fired up and ready to go. She is loving every second of it. So she was just as fired up this year. She's ready to get started.
Hmm.
So Monday is our D day. So we're excited. We're
Yeah,
doing all the things
awesome.
gearing up for it.
Well,
So
yeah, oh, for sure. And that kind of moves us into the topic of what I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about. We're as we move into a new season with Oli App and the podcast. We've got obviously Hannah bringing 2 a month by herself, and then she'll be hopping on with either your wife Amber or another guest each month, and then you and I are doing an all guys podcast once a month. And that is when we talk about going back to school, and particularly, giving encouragement to men in this podcast episode, but to everybody as well, mindset and so forth. So we have typical Young Living products that we would use, and we can talk about that for a minute to help prepare and set the atmosphere, help our kids to do well at school, help us as parents to have the right mindset. Whether it's homeschool, they go out of the house for school, or online school, whatever the case may be. Nora was a good reminder to me that, sometimes we get upset with kids or we get frustrated or whatever the case may be. But yet sometimes, like my old friend, Dr. Grant says, some things are not taught, they're caught. And so not for me, it was a good reminder, just the remarkable difference between how Nora has started school this year versus last year is that don't sweat it. Don't sweat the small stuff,
right,
because when they're ready, they will take off and go with it.
right.
And that has been a good reminder for me. But before we hop into just some mindset things and some expectations about how we approach school, because I want the podcast, my hope here is that it's not just about products, though we want to always bring those products in, but about life and meaningful life lessons and principles and perspectives and worldviews to help us be successful at life. But before we hop into that, so Chase, what are some of the things that you guys, as far as Young Living products, that you guys use to help your kids? And there with school and be successful and kind of set up your home for what you guys do?
So we focus a lot on funny play on words. We focus a lot on focus for our kids, especially Cademan. Our kids, they do so Finley, our middle, will do homeschool, straight homeschool, what she has done in the past.
Yep.
Last year she did a hybrid style, and
Yep.
which is what our other two are continuing to do this year. So
So
both Nora
hybrid
and
hybrid is a little bit of away and at
it
home.
it is. It's based off of classical conversation. Homeschooling is the curriculum, and
Right.
typically instead of homeschooling all day every day, they'll go to school Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. We'll pick up on where they left off on Tuesday. We'll pick up on Wednesday. Where they left off on Thursday, we'll pick up on Friday. And so
Okay.
we work hand in hand with the school, which is it is a massive blessing because not only is it a private school, we know, kind of we know what is being taught to our kids. We also have a big hand in that. So we work hand in hand with the teachers. Um, we know all the time what they're teaching them because we pick it up and teach it with them. So it's been a massive, massive blessing for us. And but at the same time, it takes a lot of focus because in traditional school, you're gone 8 to 3. Teacher tells you what to do. You come home, you do homework, and that's it. You're taught. Just you do what you're told to do. Homeschool, you do kind of what your parents teach you to do. And you kind of pick that up and learn to be kind of self motivated and that kind of thing. Well, this is kind of a mixture of the
Yeah.
two of them. So you're learning respect from other teachers, in the real world, and you're also learning to kind of self motivate, self
Right.
teach as you age up in school. So focus is a big thing for us. Young Living's got some amazing products that we use. The Kid Sense line that was released a few years ago is
Yeah.
exceptional for that. They've got an oil in there called Genius. It's based off
Oh,
of
we use it every day.
yeah, it's based off of the oil that Gary created a long time ago, Brain Power. It's a
Yep.
kid's version of that, and we have found it to work wonders with, especially our oldest Cademan. He's a brilliant kid. He's very very smart. He does lack focus a little bit, so it's really really good for that. Vetiver is an exceptional oil for helping with focus.
Mhm.
So um, we do that, and on top of that, I mean, like Young Living, we love it. We use it for everything, but it's also not everything. There's a lot of stuff that goes with that. We make sure they are prepped the night before. We make sure they get up and get going, early enough that morning so that their brains
That's right.
are a massive muscle. It's got to get
Yeah,
geared up and
that's
going.
right. Good structure, good routine, all that's
Right,
important. It's not just, healthy essential oils and supplements, of course, is meant to aid and supplement a healthy lifestyle.
right,
And so obviously, like you're saying, the Kid Sense lines, but obviously for children, that regular and normal rest. I remember as I've gone, I teach some in schools as well, and got a class coming up teaching in the fall, some software stuff. But I see even young kids sometimes with, like, even though we homeschool and we do some of that online school, like with little kids with dark circles under their eyes. And so I just like,
right,
man, it's important kids get sleep. And personally,
right,
our kids don't have TVs in their rooms. We
right.
just feel like that, there's got to be good sleep and protection from, there's all the, like, the blue light stuff and how, and
Mm-hmm.
messing with your melatonin and all that kind of stuff. And so, and obviously healthy eating is a really important part of that too. So certainly the Kid Sense oils, our regular routine of what we give our kids for supplements and oils
Mm-hmm.
each and every day. It's part of our regular routine with Young Living products. But I want to talk with you for a minute too about what you mentioned here in the few minutes remaining for our podcast. Um, you know, well, first of all, that whole thing about hybrid, the conversation for homeschooling, or even, I mean, the idea of hybrid school has been an evolution that's happened, and it's really gained, I think, a lot of steam in the last several years. And
It
obviously,
has.
what's been going on in our world in the last few
Mm-hmm.
years has added steam and momentum to that reality. And
Right.
I think you have a lot of parents who are in a situation where they've been forced to, and now maybe they're probably glad, because they say, well, what's my kid being taught? What's the curriculum? What am my children being are my morals and values and my worldview being reinforced?
Right.
And that hybrid situation really is a great, as the world kind of shifted and there's probably more online work and adults have a little bit more flexibility. There's now this reality of hybrid schools or online schools or whatever, where parents have more control over what's being taught,
Right.
uh, and also be able to meet the demands of putting food on the table and a roof over the head and all those things.
Right.
So, and I think that's part of what I wanted to kind of focus on for a minute too, was the other aspects of education in terms of how we as parents affect our kids, right? And so I was hugely impacted by my parents because my parents modeled a love of reading. They modeled a love of the fact that education wasn't just the learning of subjects, but it was the passing down of a way of life.
Right.
And that I think when you think of education that way, right? And obviously we have the context of all the supplements and the healthy things that we do, but it gives you a patience. Like education isn't just, get this done now. Like I'm inconvenienced or right, whatever, but
Right.
it's a passing down of a way of life.
Our
And
biggest,
go ahead.
well, I was going to say that just to note on that real quick. One of our biggest things that we teach, especially our oldest right now, because he's kind of in that age to really understand what we're saying when we say this, is we're like, we don't want you to, and there are some great public schools out there. There's some great, traditional private schools out there, but a lot of it, like you said, is just taught, get this done, get the grade, and move on. You know what I mean? And we tell them all the time,
Right.
we're like, look, if you got a C on this test, like, let's figure it out. Let's take it again. Because we have the freedom to
Sure.
do that, because the goal should not be to get the test done, do the best you can, and then move on. If they're not learning what that topic is and what that subject is, the C
Right.
doesn't matter. Might as well be an F. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And so that's our goal. We're
Right.
like, our goal is
That's
to
right.
teach you so that you learn what that is, and being able to have that sort of power, I guess, coinciding with the school that we, teach with. It's just it's a big thing. It's not that I didn't have that as growing up as a child going to school, but I went to a traditional school where it was just get the grade, move on, get the grade, move on. And as an adult, you learn, no, let's make sure you know what is actually being taught. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, because you think about prepping for the real workforce, it's not, you have this one, it's a continual evolution, right? And
Right,
so bigger thing is that you learn how to learn. And in that context, we as parents, I think it's important that we pass down a love of learning, right? And
right,
obviously we can't pass that love of learning and that love of exploring if we don't have a love of learning and we're not patient with our kids.
right,
And we're not saying, on top of that, look, the reason why we should learn is because God made the world. It's full of amazing truth and realities and discoveries. And we want to, as opposed to being consumed with a virtual digital age, though technology is great and it certainly has its place,
right,
teaching kids to look at and see the beauty and the glory of God's creation, of human relationship, of connection, of the world that I remember Lord of the Rings, he said, Bilbo, or I think it was Bilbo, or I think it was Bilbo, the world's not in your books, right? It's
mm-hmm,
out there,
mm-hmm,
right? So I love books. I buy tons of old books and read them,
mm-hmm,
but the world is out there, and the books
right,
are meant to supplement and aid to reinforce this bigger view of a love of life and a
right,
passion for knowledge, because knowledge ultimately tied to who God is, right? It makes sense. There's reason, there's truth, and there's meaningful things that we can do or build to be a blessing to human society, and to participate in. And that knowledge and education, of course, in that view of passing down the way of life is a very exciting thing.
right. And we look at, I look at this kind of as you're talking. I start to think about like our roles as fathers and men with our kids. Obviously, you and I are pretty heavily involved with our homeschooling. I know you teach lessons at home. I teach lessons at home. We trade off with our wives, things like that. But, it goes the same. So we have a pretty good touch to our kids of what they're learning and how they're learning it. And, it still fits the same with dads who may work, full time and their kids go to school, full time, and then you don't see them until the evening time. You still play a massive role as a man, as a husband and a father to be an encouragement to that child, help them with their homework, help just, simple ask them how their day was and if there's anything that that you can help with, because your voice is strong. Your voice as the leader of the house is strong,
That's right.
and that will be a small ripple that'll turn into waves on down in their life and in their schooling.
And even there, that's right. And even there, using the supper table, the kitchen table, the family, carve out, if that's your reality, work and they're at school, carve out that family time in the evening to make that connection, right? And to
Right.
pour in and discuss and look over materials, because um, those children, it's a moment and the time is gone and they're grown. And what a precious gift we have. So,
It is. Yep.
yeah. So I hope that this podcast is encouraging to you, not only to, obviously find the routines of where you plug in your young living supplements, daily routine, healthy eating, regular schedule, oils and supplements. Of course, obviously the Ningxia and the Nitro and all the Kid Sense oils, but also that we can encourage you to take a step down the path of education, to view it as a passing down of a way of life, and that your great task and privilege in that is to pass on to your children a love of learning, with a patient hand of guiding and nurturing their minds and souls.
That's right. Great stuff. Great stuff, brother. All right. Well, I think that about does it for this edition of the podcast. If you listened tonight, I genuinely hope that you loved it. We've got some really, really good stuff coming up here in the future. We've got weekly podcasts coming out. We just want to build a community. Jump on our Facebook page, jump on our Instagram. Let us know what you think and any topics that you want to hear. And after that, we'll catch you all next time.